Okay, let's unpack this. Here's a bit of a head scratcher for you.
Hmm.
It's actually possible to legally remain in the United States even after the expiration date printed on your visa.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
But hold on.
Right. Seems weird.
Exactly. Before anyone gets too excited, that's really just the starting point. It's, well, pretty complex from there.
It does indeed. And that initial surprise, it really highlights a critical difference that honestly confuses a lot of people. Doesn't matter if they're just planning a visit or, already living here.
You mean the difference between a visa and immigration status?
Precisely. So in this deep dive, we're really focusing in on those two things, visa and immigration status. We'll get into what each one actually means, how they work together, and why understanding this difference is just, well, vital for anyone dealing with the U.S. system.
Yeah, our goal today is really to clear that up. We want to cut through the confusion around these terms that get mixed up all the time.
Yeah.
So you can hopefully feel more confident navigating U.S. immigration stuff and avoid, potential headaches.
Think of it as getting you informed and feeling a bit more secure about where you stand legally.
Right.
All right, so let's start with piece number one. What exactly is a visa?
Okay. So simply put, a visa is that physical thing, usually a stamp or a sticker right there in your passport.
Gotcha, physical mark.
And it's issued outside the U.S. by a U.S. embassy or consulate. It's basically the government saying, okay, you appear eligible to ask to enter the U.S. under a certain category, like tourist, student, worker, whatever it is.
So almost like the permission slip to even knock on the door.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. It gets you to the door. Now, the visa has dates on it, an issuance date and an expiration date. That window is when you're allowed to travel to the U.S. and ask to be let in.
But, and this is important, right? Having it doesn't mean you're automatically in.
Absolutely, crucial point. No guarantee. There's another step.
Okay, so what happens then when you actually arrive? You're at the airport, let's say.
Right. You get to the port of entry, could be an airport, could be a land border, and you meet a Customs and Border Protection officer, a CBP officer.
Okay.
And that officer has the final say. They decide if you actually get admitted, and maybe even more critically, they determine how long you're allowed to stay this time.
So the visa gets you to the CBP officer, but the officer holds the keys to how long you can actually be in the country. Okay. What about visas that let you come and go? Multiple entries.
Yeah, some visas do allow for multiple entries as long as the visa itself hasn't expired. It should say right on it if it's multiple entry. But the key thing is, each time you show up at the border, that CBP officer is going to check you out again and decide how long you can stay for that specific trip. The visa just lets you try again.
Got it. And let's loop back to where we started, that surprising fact. If your visa expires while you're already in the U.S. legally, is that a problem?
Surprisingly, often it's not. Because the visa's main job is entry. Once you're lawfully admitted by CBP, that visa expiration date, it becomes much less important for your stay.
Oh, okay.
What really matters then is your immigration status.
Right, that's the key transition. So let's dig into that. What is immigration status once you're inside?
Okay, so your immigration status, that's your official legal standing while you're in the U.S., after you've been let in. The CBP officer sends this up when you arrive.
How do they do that?
Usually they'll put an admission stamp in your passport. Or, more often these days, it's an electronic record called Form I-94.
Ah, the I-94. Heard of that. What's on it? What does it tell you?
The I-94 is super important. It shows your admitted until date, the exact date you have to leave by.
Okay, the hard deadline.
Or sometimes, especially for like F1 students, it might say DS.
DS.
Duration of status. It means you can stay as long as you're doing what your status requires, like being a full-time student in good standing.
So the I-94, whether it's a date or DS, that's the real rule book for how long you can legally stay.
That's exactly right. Pay close attention to that. The I-94 and maybe other documents like an I-20 for students, they control your stay, how long, and under what conditions, like if you can work or not.
And can that status change? Say you come as a tourist, but then you want to study. Can you switch while you're there?
Sometimes, yes. You might be able to apply to USCIS, that's U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, to change your status without leaving, like your tourist to student example.
But it's not automatic.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah.
There are rules, eligibility requirements. Not every category allows it, and you have to apply properly. It's a whole process.
Okay, so visa for entry, status for the stay. Big difference. Can we make this even clearer? Maybe with an analogy.
Sure. Think of the visa like a ticket to get into a concert.
Okay.
The ticket gets you through the gate. But once you're inside, The ticket stuff doesn't really matter for whether you get kicked out, right?
Yeah.
It's about following the venue rules. It's like your status, how
Yeah.
long you stay, what you do, that's governed by the rules inside, not the entry ticket.
That actually helps a lot. The ticket gets you in, the rules let you stay. How about a real immigration example?
Okay. Let's take a researcher. They come over on a J-1 visa, say for a one-year project. Their visa stamp has an expiration date.
Right.
But as long as they're actually doing their research, maintaining their J-1 status, which their program sponsor tracks, they can legally stay for that whole year, even if the visa stamp itself expires 6 months in.
Okay, visa expires, but status is good, so they can stay. Makes sense. But what if that researcher needs to pop home for a week during that year?
Ah, good question. If they leave the U.S. and their J-1 visa stamp has expired, well, even though their research program and J-1 status are still valid, they'll usually need to go to a U.S. embassy back home and get a new J-1 visa stamp before they can come back into the U.S.
Even though the program is ongoing?
Even though the program is ongoing, the expired visa stamp won't work for reentry.
Wow, okay. That really drives the point home. Visa for entry, status for stay. So what happens if things go wrong? We know the visa expiring while you're here might be okay. But what about your status expiring? Or other issues?
Yeah, that's where the serious problems start.
Yeah.
Staying past the date on your I-94 or violating the terms of your status, that's called overstaying.
Overstaying. Sounds bad.
It is. If you overstay, you start accruing something called unlawful presence. And that can trigger major consequences for